Hello and good morning. I'm to do some slightly different today. This is a challenge run I've been working on trying to balance out for the last few months. Namely, holy lord, I think it's thundering like crazy outside. So, since this came out back in, like 2011 or something like that, I've been trying to come up with some kind of challenge run for this game. Basically, the base version of it's semi-challenging the first time through. A lot of the post-game stuff is crazy hard, but then, just in general, balancing is all the hell over the place. So, I guess to give a little bit of background here, in the original, you just basically picked up units as you went. Your leader could convince other people to join you, and you could buy new ones and pay to have them trained up to the highest level that you've gotten up to a certain point. And then if you lost somebody, like if their health went down, that's it. They were just dead now. So that was the thing. Each character leveling up was kind of a big deal. Now, over time, this would come to a situation where you're constantly struggling to keep a party alive. You're trying to keep as many people around as you can, and then you get a unique character. Like, okay, finally I got somebody that's slightly better. Unfortunately, the original's balance is jacked to absolute crap, to the point where most of the boss characters are impossibly strong, like, no matter how you look at it. Melee characters don't even make sense to use for a good majority of the game, and then you get into endgame, at which point you can just give somebody two swords, and for whatever reason it stacks the damage on top of each other. So you have a guy basically going around, one-shotting everything. And, just in general, archers were super overpowered. A lot of magic users were stupidly overpowered, like to the point where they could just nuke an entire corner of the map with impunity. So, it was strange. Now, the approach they took when they remade it was to kind of nerf everyone across the board, to varying degrees of success. Now, this is kind of where the whole leveling thing kind of comes in, because you're encouraged to have a wide variety of characters. Now, unfortunately, if you leave somebody behind or they get knocked out during a fight, that also means they don't get anything, which also means they fall behind, which means their entire class falls behind instead of just one guy. Granted, you didn't lose them, and instead they implemented this heart system, so if they lose 3 of their hearts, they're just dead. And I guess I should probably get to the actual rules of the challenge now, because I wanted to put together a challenge that would allow the game to feel as the story implies that it should, namely that you are just a scrappy group for pretty much everything up until Chapter 4. Like, you're just basically a band going around. In some routes, you get some semblance of an army that's said to be fighting off in the background and all that. But by and large, you're supposed to be struggling, and it's a little bit immersion-breaking when you're told, hey, look, here's a bunch of peasants with pitchforks. Oh wait, those guys are fully equipped. There's that army of veterans over there. What do you know, they have like half as many skills, their equipment's crap, and they don't stand a chance. Seems weird. So, now to get to the actual rules of this challenge. So, first of all, your leader. At each of your classes, your leader can pick one class. They can change to that class later on. Nobody else can be the same class as the leader. Any other units, you can have 2 of each class. I prefer to just keep a male and female of each class. Just keep track of who's there. You can use 1 per each class per fight. If both units from that class die, that's it, that class is just gone now. The only equipment that you can use is stuff that you get during fights, and you cannot do random fights. The only side content, you can do, the dungeon crawling kind of stuff, but you can only go through each one once. Now, the main reason for this, I wanted to exclude that entirely, but I found out pretty early on, during the last couple that I did, that around the end of Chapter 3, you get to a point where the level mismatch, plus casualties, plus everything else, kind of gets to a point where you need some randoms in order to be able to catch everybody up. So that's mostly there for party balancing. And you may get a couple of extra items, but that's about it. Generally speaking, it keeps itself pretty balanced. You can't become overpowered at any point. You're pretty much stuck slightly below the computer at all times. And another thing, all items are allowed. Like I mentioned, you can only get stuff that you picked up during the fight, or that you got from recruits. So you can use your recruit skills. Only caveat on that, well, there pretty much is none. It's one of the few things that actually keeps clerics useful in this run. That and exorcisms. That's a whole other thing, though. You can use any items. Those aren't limited in any way. You can use any books during the fight. That doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a one-off. You get very few of them in this. So you have to use them pretty darn sparingly, and you know what? To say that somebody is just completely screwed and unable to beat their run because they forgot to attach a book to a character beforehand, that feels a little bit unfair. Like, this setup is more about being an immersive Iron Man run, not so much a kick you in the dick run. So there is fairness to it. I wanted to have a thing where it was possible to make use of all the game's mechanics in a way that made sense. So you are allowed to use the chariot. That only goes back 50 turns, which is a lot shorter than you might think in a lot of these fights, because it might only end up being, 2 turns per individual character in some of these fights. So, maybe you just move that guy forward a little bit, and that's it. You can't really go back and do anything about it. So I don't think it's too overpowered, especially in this run. Sometimes you might end up kind of needing it. What else am I forgetting here? Yeah, so crafting's allowed, all items are allowed, no silver coins are allowed because, well, that would kind of defeat the purpose of you end up losing people. No uniques. Generally, they are a bit overpowered in a lot of cases, and especially if you end up getting Canopus early on. He can just practically steamroll the entire first chapter for you. So that's a no. There's not really any limit on kill moves, which I still can't believe that there were a few challenge runs that people suggested that had an entire, friggin' graph over what chapters you can use what kill moves when. It's dumb, as far as I'm concerned. For a challenge run, you can see your rules, you can kind of understand the basics of them, just follow them. It doesn't have to be super unintuitive at all times. So, anyhow, that's about that. You can use any new class as soon as you get the class marks for it. Again, same 2-person limit. The only exception is whatever class your leader is, and that is only him. Because, well, frankly, if he dies, you don't need a second one anyway because your game is done. What else? And I think that's everything. As far as how this switches around roles, this ends up making your melee characters a lot less of a constant mainstay. It ends up making your clerics less of a healing class and more of a recruiting class, because their abilities are not very common. So, if you get one that's able to resurrect people, that's a huge advantage, but the odds of actually being able to sustain that, pretty low. So, the way I see it, it's a way of setting up these weird tactics that you might end up setting up, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, that's it. So, it gives an incentive to actually keep some people going. You're not constantly bum rushing straight for the leader because you're not overpowered enough to actually do that. Now, there is a little bit of UI glitchiness. Unfortunately, this is as unglitchy as I was able to get it. It's super fiddly. It's been super fiddly. I don't really know why, because it was perfectly fine before. But, yeah. It's been kind of like a mess of UI glitches. The rest of it seemed to work fine. There really wasn't much that I changed, so I'm not sure why it does that. So, if you happen to have a suggestion on how to fix it, I'd appreciate it. Now, my personal preference, I like to have these two in the back smacking each other over the head with sticks, get their stick skill up. And have these guys in front, this one doing the archery business. So let's do something more like this. There we go. Now, because of clerics being generally... Oh, actually, one more little caveat. You have to use all of your people. So you can't just leave a class behind if you have the option to deploy it. If you have too many people, you know, too bad, so sad, but if you don't, gotta use everybody. So the way I like to use clerics in this particular challenge, I found that they make pretty useful evasion tanks if you use them right. So by the time you end up getting mage staffs and shields for your clerics, you can kind of get to the point where if you've gotten their cudgel skill up, they can become pretty decent at dodging. And yeah, then you just kind of stick them over by a corner. They can kind of funnel a few people towards them. They see them as squishy, so they keep trying to go for them. And they end up, if you did them right, they end up actually blocking quite a bit. Actually, my longest running run, I had one where this one cleric ended up just holding off like 4 guys half the fight, and then finally ended up getting killed off and dying at the end of said fight, but still, she made all the difference just holding them off there. You end up having to resort to some pretty bizarre stuff, because you wind up with bizarre class balance. Like, you may get amazing items for one class and nothing for another. So you can recruit people. Again, there's no really guarantee of anything, so... Man, I wish I knew what to do about this UI stuff. You know, let me try one thing real quick here. If I... Thinking if I turn off frame skipping, that might be what that is. Yeah, I think that looks like that's what it was. This may cause a little bit of lagging sometimes, but it's better than a constant jitter, I think. Unfortunately, there's still this, so it ends up lagging if I try to use the overhead menu. But you're gonna try not to use it. Alright, my leader's mostly gonna stand back. He doesn't really have any weapon skill to get up. Sometimes you're gonna have to put a few people out of the easier fights, just have them sit back and train. Just because you will end up running out of time later on. I mean, I had one of them where I got all the way to the end of Chapter 3 and people were just getting their first kill moves just because I had to constantly switch them between weapon types, so they weren't actually mastering one thing or another. And, you know, that made sense. You've got these crazy kill moves, you'd think they would take more than a few minutes to go and memorize and learn and figure out and actually use in some effective manner. Now, the initial skills I started these guys with, I started off Fanatic over here with Fire and Sticks. Started the Cleric with Healing and Sticks. Neither one has a book that they can use right now, that's why they're practicing their stick skills back here. The nice thing is, they go up fairly quickly, so they're already, you know, 6 to 8% done, more or less. So every time they hit or block or use that stick whatsoever, they get a little better. A nice thing about cudgels, like I said, they tend to go up pretty quick. That's what makes them useful evasion tanks. Which is nice, because upon initial inspection, they would seem like they outright suck. But you know, they're useful for just plain old defense when you get that skill up. And then if you get their kill move, it comes to a place where they have that one really good hit that they can do. And the thing's holy based, so there's a chance it can vaporize a zombie for you. It doesn't, like, actually vaporize the zombie, but... So, main use for the tarot is not so much going back and redoing stuff, although that's certainly part of it. But it's gonna be the fact that the AI will steal your bags. And like I said, I was hoping to make this as non-frustrating as possible. Like, when you lose, it is definitely your fault. I didn't want a situation where, you know, you have an archer, you want them to be using a certain type of bow, you finally get that drop, and then the friggin' AI decides, you know what, I'm gonna steal this for no reason. I can't use it, but I'm gonna steal it. So, to limit AI dickery in any sense, or to eliminate cases where you just plain old get horrible RNG and end up missing 4 attacks in a row or something like that, That's why the chariot's allowed. So, again, the ability to redo stuff seems like it would be broken, but you kinda gotta see some of these later fights to see what I mean. Like, even if you've played this before, you kinda gotta see it in context. I'm just reminding what Temperance does. Yeah, that's fine. You can have the resistance bonus. Normally, I like stacking all kinds of bonuses onto my main guy. In this case, I'm gonna let her have at least a couple of those Temperance ones. Just because Rune Fencers suck in terms of durability. They're kind of more of a recovery sponge, for lack of a better term, in which they get an ability later on that, if you see that yellow bar on the far right, it's kind of like an adrenaline sort of thing. You spend that on abilities. They get an ability later on that's basically transferring that into health. And that lets them tank a lot of friggin' damage. So, very useful. Alright, if we could get away from the lag, that'd be great. Yeah. So what else? I normally like to make the leader a knight, just because they will generally ignore him, and he's got a lot of really good offense going for him. He's usually going to be the first one to get a kill move from the group, because of the fact that he's required to be in every fight, and because of the fact that he's going to be more durable since he's a knight. I've tried runs with having him as an archer or a berserker. Those work decently, but they still mark them as a target. Generally, any unit that's tanky, the AI will not make a huge deal of going after. Pretty much what this allows for everybody else to sit back and just deal with the fight as it comes. It allows him to just beeline straight for the leader, you know, try to take them out. Hopefully everybody else holds out long enough for him to be able to beat the leader before they all die. Just kinda how it goes. These two continue smacking each other. Have a little more coffee, cause it's delicious. In this fight, it really doesn't make too much sense to go after every one of these guys, but, you know, if they drop a couple healing leaves, that'd be handy. I will say this run definitely makes you appreciate basic healing leaves. I mean, your healing options are next to nothing. So, honestly, sitting back and even spamming a couple regular healing leaves, that's enough to make a huge difference. Huge. Become huge. And yeah, another reason I allow the chariot, well, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit spazzy when playing this sometimes. It goes on for quite a while with some of the fights. And, you know, sometimes you accidentally have a misclick, and, you know, you don't want to have your entire run screwed over by a misclick. And if it wasn't made clear already, or if I didn't mention it already, this is an Iron Man run, so no reloads other than the chariot thing. And, yeah. So, leader dies at any point, and that's it. Yeah, no, it really isn't, but what can you do? Canopus decided to end the fight. Kinda sucks, because then you go back through the report and find out he was literally just there trying to save his kid or something. Can't remember if that was him or his brother. Alright, everybody got a few points. I don't think I actually introduced... Yeah, sorry, Canopus. Yeah. That is definitely a fair response right there. Because nobody should be serious about getting rid of Canopus, he's so friggin' strong. Right, so the party here. Figured street enemy, good for the basic soldier class. Zenata, good for the archers, they're pretty overpowered. Fanatic, pretty good for an enchantress. You know, probably got red eyes or whatever. Foundy Man, this is the Foundation Man from BD. He basically sits back and does a lot of talking, so that's what this guy's gonna do. Sit back, block stuff with a stick, and try to recruit people until hopefully he becomes an exorcist or a reviver, if he survives that long. I don't really see him surviving that long. Usually my second cleric ends up dying around the end of Chapter 3, and then just end up relying on others for passive healing, but who knows. And then we'll survive for the Valkyrie, because of course. Alright, moving on. This is the first actual fight. Now let's go over to here. Yes, stuff's available. I just love this feature right here. I can see stuff, so that guy we just fought there in the last fight. They gave all the backstories of everybody you run into. So, he's had this whole history of politics and whatever else. And he was a volunteer guy. Yep. Son of an architect, apparently. And here you got all your titles, you just pick those up as you go. Got all the music over there in that other menu. Did I pick up a hammer yet? I doubt it. Yeah, I want to pick up a hammer for him as soon as possible. Now, these other two are generally fine with what they've got. There's kind of an equip load system of sorts. If you see the RT number on the top right, it's just your basic recovery time. Generally you want it as low as possible. So right now my lowest is Keshua with her 88. She's pretty fast. Oh, and apparently Foundy Man is pretty similar. But yeah, the worse stuff they have, the less it weighs, the better they, the faster they can be. This is never really going to get to the point where you have one character, you know, doing double turns against somebody, so it doesn't make too much sense to stick to crappy equipment. But in some cases, it's better off to just send everybody in naked. Okay, so in this case... Okay, I can't retreat from it. Oh well. I have to go back and pick up a Berserker. So yeah, this early on, these fights don't get too much XP, so missing a fight with the Berserker doesn't really matter. I don't have one yet, so I'll pick them up after this fight. Not the end of the world. Like I said, I don't really like keeping a whole lot of stuff in mind when doing these kinds of things. I just like to be able to sit back and think about the strategy aspects more than anything else. This is about as simple as I've been able to get it. This music is awesome. Unfortunately, it causes the game to lag. Well, okay, the lightning effect causes the game to lag for whatever reason. Won't be doing a whole lot here. Actually, shouldn't even be a terribly long fight. So Donalto, since he took that early crit, he's got a very good chance of dying before the end of this. Which gives another character to replace him, but they're not getting hired anyway. It is free stuff, though. Now, have him go down. Won't be using a lot of these leaves, but I want to keep at least Kashua topped up. Because if you knock out these skeletons, as long as they have enough MP on hand, they will exercise them. Otherwise, they'll just go around healing everybody for literally anything. They don't really care how much they heal, they just want to heal. I'd like to do something about that lag, but I can't. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have my main tanks and Spear Lady plug up this little hole in the center. Try to take out the skeletons. Generally just try to get close to bringing the Necromancer Lady on the other side whenever she gets close. Gonna have to slowly take guys out here. Now the way I found pretty effective to do this, and this works, I would say pretty much every time. Well, unless they're taking crits. Ow. I can't really do much against that against that top skeleton there. But setting up like this, pretty much allows you to meet everybody in that little corner instead of facing them out on the other side. You do have 2 healers on your side, so that's useful. One of the few times where healing is going to be available. So first things first, focus on these guys. Unfortunately, they're gonna have pretty awful accuracy right now. Yeah, I'm trying to see what I can do here for... Alright, so this makes it a little bit janky, but it gets rid of the lag. So right now, I'd much rather have that. What happens if we put frame skipping up to 2? Alright, that's a little bit more visually pleasing. Yeah, that's definitely not great, but you know what, it's better than it was. Sort of. It's actually going astoundingly poor right off the bat. Alright, so I'm gonna have this guy retreat a little bit. Start taking out the skeleton. Thank you for finally blocking. It's good that you have that ability. Let me try something a little different here. What if we're not frame skipping, but then we lock the rendering resolution? Yeah, I think that's how I did it last time. Yeah. Set it to 1x resolution. A little bit better. Oh, wait, this was a waste. Alright, now to show off the tarot. So basically what this does is lets you click this, go back up to 50 turns. And yeah, nothing really for him to do, so keep sparring. Oh dang! I think my wife actually finally caught up on Pokemon Sun. We've been... It's funny, we got that as a wedding shower gift friggin' last year. We both started playing the thing and then just, like, completely forgot about it. Alright, so what's next here? Actually, wait. This is exactly what I had her set up for. So, picked up Spark Sphere. She can actually be really useful now. I completely forgot about this. So she can finally use fireballs. Funny part is... I'm gonna try to use that sparingly because that effect sucks right now. So funny part is... They are very good early on, but then later on turn into just utter garbage. Like, their general thing is more shutdown than damage. Like, against very lightly armored things, they're gonna be pretty effective. But, the rate that it starts eliminating their damage is pretty nuts. Oh, you failed Lemmer. What a friggin' shame. He's such a great person. Totally not a murderous psychopath or anything. And he totally won't ask anyone to commit a frickin' genocide in this, you know, just because he doesn't want to. Oh well. So, first skeleton gone. And that's nice. So now those ghosts are getting uncomfortably close. And even my high percentage blocks aren't going through. So now we're gonna retreat behind this building. The one where Vice is standing. And, just kind of right around here. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do some good stuff from here. Come on, Joffrey. Almost, anyway. And so she's gonna go stab this little folks. Except I need that stab to go in, so why don't you stab him, please? There you go. And that's why you need it, because as you can pretty clearly see by the numbers here, this fight would functionally be unwinnable. And in a lot of cases, you're going to run into cases where, you know, you kind of got to test whether or not you can actually get away with a risky attack, because, you know, you just flat out have no chance with how much weaker your guys are. And bear in mind, this is pretty even right now. So, getting into kind of a scrappy fight here. Honestly, if I would have... I don't think it really would have made a difference if I brought a Berserker along. They would have just died. Every single run that I've done of this, the first Berserker that I bring along to this fight just ends up dying, and that's it. So, if anything, they're not here to sponge damage, but that's all. So now, their leader's getting pretty close. I'm gonna go and dedicate the archer to shooting at him as soon as she's in range. So that's gonna be a little ways. Probably gonna be next turn. It's only 3 shots from the archer to take her out. Dang it, they just hate Lucify. Yeah, hopefully we can at least take out this lady pretty soon here. Like that. And for the double stab here. Yeah, not worth it. Get this one dead. So, main reason I like having the main guy with hammers. This game's got a lot of, I guess, inconsistencies as far as whether it wants to be historical or fantasy. So it tries to go historical on some things, like hammers are going to be, you know, pretty great against armors and things like that. Swords won't be. Spears would be in some cases, but they don't exactly show that. It varies. Like, it's just all over the friggin' place. So, yeah. Spears are a little bit frustrating to me, actually, but anyhow. The whole reason that I have him with hammers is because of the whole armor crushing thing, so in a lot of cases you need to have him going to, you know, just barrel through the other guys and take out their leader because you're suddenly losing. So I like having that as kind of a last-ditch option if the entire line's breaking down and things like that. Like in this case, there's a minor amount of defense still being held, but overall this line is in all kinds of disarray right now. They don't have free reign on me yet, but it's getting there. But yeah, so as soon as he starts getting his kill moves, he starts getting preposterous amounts of damage in. And it's funny because the very first run that I did, I had him set up the exact same way. Though, I will say, in this case, I actually went through and looked up what the different tarot answers were, so he's actually specialized for health and strength. Okay, that's not good. And they're broken through. In that case, you go do some double damage. If you can. Okay, no, not worth it. In that case, go revive her. And you only get like 12 of these things pretty much until chapter 4. I like to use them early on because I like to keep these early characters going. So I want this guy dead, and I want him to drop an item. Because I want that dang hammer. And stuff's completely broken down. You're already getting through all over the place. Get you and your damage out of here. I'm probably just gonna have a priest chuck a rock at the back of his head to kill him off next turn. Yeah, so a lot of this is kind of setting up emergency strategies if your main ones don't work. And some fights are just kind of a mess of accepting losses, like the one, if you end up getting the fight in the mountains against, what's his face? And I just remembered it a second ago, and now I forgot again. The Dodaro guy. Hector. So if you end up fighting him in the mountains, oof, stuff gets rough. I mean, you basically have to completely sacrifice most of your guys in order to be able to lure him out to the back of the map. And then you're in a situation where you're kind of trying to get a few people to hold off the rest of his army while your main guy pelts at him. And, you know, they're just having this duel at the back of the line. It's kind of awesome how it all ended up working out the last time I did it. No! Oh, killing off Fnatic. Right, I'm not gonna use another item on her, though. Do either of you have a longbow? Probably not, because you're 2s. A crossbow could be useful. So crossbows are super useful if you can get somebody with a skill to use them. That's one of the reasons that I gave Lasvai the crossbow skill. And if I get a Dragoon, they'll be in... Oh, crap. They'll be using it too. Right, never mind, I need to take back that damage. No, give me a chariot use. Nope, you're healing instead. Because this fight will be unwinnable without Zenaida here, because I cannot actually reach that other lady. So, you kind of casually put together different strategies, and then you can go back and test different stuff. I just like how it all comes together. Maybe you smack her with a stick for the hell of it. Now you do some shots. Yeah, you don't realize how bad their accuracy can be until it's raining. And I want to say their accuracy goes down by like 30-40% in the rain. When they say significant, they mean significant. In a lot of cases, they don't mean it. In this case, they do. They do have a skill that lets them completely negate that effect for one attack. It is one of the most overpowered things you could ever possibly do, especially for a starter skill. Actually, the lowest thing that both archers and warriors get is a skill that gives them 100% crit, 100% hit chance. And basically says, yeah, here you go, here's the first skill, this is totally balanced, don't worry about it. And kind of rolls with it from there. Unshockingly, it is disgustingly imbalanced. But it does allow for runs like this to be pretty viable. It slows them down when they use it, which is basically a heavy attack. But, you know, say it's raining and you have the points to use it. Crap. I don't... no. I was gonna say, if she's targeting somebody else, then Lasvai might be able to run in and close in for a hit, but... Now why don't you go over here? Drop a heal on this mess. There we go. There we go. You get your hit and steal this bag. Dickery. Didn't end up getting a hammer. Friggin' need a hammer for him. Well, it doesn't matter. With most of the basic variants, you end up getting them anyway. So usually you wind up with like 3 or 4 hammers, 5 or 6 swords, maybe a spear or 2. Usually a few short bows, at least 1 crossbow. I mean, I've had some runs with no crossbows, they seem to be the rarest. Alright, go for the finisher. Excellent. Well, yes, you're a necromancer. You're all about that death. And then everybody else disappears because it was a leader win condition. The beat everybody condition is the one that sucked. Now everyone's at 3. I believe that should give at least 2 people their mighty hit moves. Guess what? No! No, we didn't. I really don't like that Sarah and Voltaire are even here. In the original, they made sense. They were just extra units. In the remake, you know, getting these 3 right here is just redundant. Because other than the Knight, you already have these units. They're better versions of those units that you already got. You're gonna have an extra slot, so it's a little bit annoying that you can't necessarily use them. I don't know, it's just awkward. I know I'm probably griping about nothing, but it's just awkward. Alright. Let's hire a dude. Actually, I might as well hire everybody else that I'm gonna end up using. So, hire an archer for later. Got a Vangel. I think he makes sense as an annoying archer. What am I having for female warrior 1? Or what about... About Huntress. Why not? Probably should have hired her from one of the backroom cities. And then she would go and end up leaving in the middle of the fight. Depending on what nationality your soldiers are, they'll end up leaving under certain circumstances. So if you have anybody that you hired from a backroom city around late game, they kind of get a little bit pissed that you're going and taking them all out in droves. And actually, what do you know? She actually is one. So that works out. Wait, why are they the backroom ones? Didn't even realize that, I never realized their clans were actually randomized in this. The little things. Let's see. I think you'll be solo. This is supposed to be the male Valkyrie. So, solo is here. Male wizard. Actually, you feel neutral. Let's go with Faust. Fantastic. Who's missing? You feel like a yellow boat. That'll work. There we go. Not really going to use them for quite a while, but oh well. Now, for a Berserker, I just want somebody strong, so what's the strongest we've got here? Alright, you're currently the strongest. Meanwhile, Berserker, let's go with Eclair. And Porcupine, I think. Oh, he's got worse stats than last time. Before re-rolling this. 51, 56. I want to get that 58 from last time. Whatever, 57 will do. Porcupine felt lawful, I don't know. That might be completely wrong. But it will. There we are. And nobody's gonna watch a freaking hour-long part. Oh well. It's here just to show off the challenge anyway. Beep. And there we go. No identical sprites. That's what I like to see. It really bugs me when there's a bunch of identical sprites. In the original, it didn't, because you were essentially just, you know, hiring generics all the time. And this one, though, when you've got a bunch of individual units, and you've got different skills on them, it's a little bit annoying when you've got different skill sets assigned to the exact same visual image. That might be something that's not going to come up for everyone. It bugs the ever-loving hell out of me. Now, let's be frank here. Porcupine, you're gonna die. There's no question about that whatsoever. Now, as far as the Berserker skill here, kind of go down what each of these are good at. So fists are a two-handed weapon. They are good for overall damage. Their kill moves are just increase the damage in different methods. They've got a pretty good variety of weapons, and there's a decent chance of getting them. But there's kind of a mid-game gap in which they're stuck with cestices and things like that for a very long time. So usually rogues and stuff end up dropping more fist weapons, but you don't always get the opportunities to go and get them. Daggers, there's a definite gap, but the nice thing is if you end up picking up a Boulder Dagger later on, a lot of things carry them, and that you just have a unit that can hit hard and also gets a huge damage bonus against any kind of undead things. If you don't have an Exorcist, they can at least keep them pinned to the ground, so that's useful to have. Axes are pretty much garbage in general, but they are plentifully available, sort of. I mean, you get more often than not, if you're going down the chaotic route, you're gonna run into more axes. If you're running down lawful, less so. And then neutral is just gonna be a kind of mix of both. So I don't know about that. I already have somebody using hammers. I probably will pick this up on somebody else, but not a Berserker. Even though I'd love to have them going out and putting out that kind of damage on everybody, the odds of them being able to actually keep up with that weapon usage throughout the game, the odds of actually getting two very good hammers are on the low end, and cudgels, I don't know why this is even here. Because there's very few of those. You basically just get a few maces, because they can't even use sticks. They basically just get maces, and they're a crappy version of hammers. So I guess unless you wanted to specialize them towards having certain elemental damages, but even then they're going to be stuck doing no damage for pretty much everything but a single hit. I mean, I guess theoretically... No, because Sanguine Strike doesn't even combine with a kill move, so it's pointless. I can't really think of any reason why you'd ever give them cudgels. Yeah, they don't start out with any of their abilities, so I'm gonna go with daggers. Actually, let me take a look at their stats real quick. Nah, both their dexes are pretty low. Alright. In that case, I'm just going to chance it for hammers with the first guy. At least early on, there's going to be at least a couple available, I know that for sure. I'm going to leave his second slot open for now. He's still got 50 to spend, but I'm just going to leave it open. Anybody else need anything? Not really. Alright. There we go. Actually, no, let me manual sort these. Porcupine, go up over here. There we are. Now reassign their numbers. That looks about right. So now there's the option of going for Kadruga or just backing off, which backing off is definitely the way to go, because there's no way this group's beating that. Skip some story. Then Leonard happened. Did I actually pick up a hammer? I don't think so. Yeah, I did. Nice. Did I pick up a Pelta? No, but Leonard did. Hi, Leonard. Nice stuff you've got there. It would be a shame if somebody stole it all from you. There we are. Make you suck. That sounds wrong, but whatever. It'll be a little clearer later as to why I'm stripping him of all his stuff when I'm pretty sure you get it anyway. But, just in case, since I never bothered to check, I'm going to make sure to take it from him. A few people that can put on these leggings. Very rare that you actually get a flat upgrade like this. And I'm actually going to have him double specialized now that I think about it. I'm going to have him switching between axes and hammers. I've got a lot of those right now, and I want him at least training up something. So, another thing that I like about this setup is just the fact that you can actually have people training for specific things. So now, I have one of every class, I can't deploy a second one. So this will be it. Don't have an 8th class yet. Oh, and that's another reason that you'd probably want to do Farampa. So aside from just balancing out your party, you can get some otherwise unobtainable classes. Alright. Usually, I like to split the party here. I think this time I'm going to try something a little different, in which I'm just going to have kind of missile units standing towards the center. Generally ignore those guys on the left, go for the ones on the right, and then try to come around from the side while Leonard goes and distracts everybody on the left. And this is why the Gladius was taken from him. Because it does not matter whatsoever, he's still gonna be a friggin' beast with that thing. Drop a little bit of damage, just to show what kind of skill gains we're getting with this. Yeah, he has to hit 100 times with that thing to actually get his kill move. And that was pretty decent damage, so you basically get a certain percentage plus whatever damage you did. So like, for example, if you ended up, by the looks of it, it just kind of averages up depending on what type of weapon you're using. So in the case of the axe, It would be 1% for actually hitting with the thing, and then another 0.4%, averaging up from 36. At least that is my assumption. I assume there's more accurate calculations, but upon searching, nobody really seemed to know how the hell that all goes up. Because apparently none of the numbers bothered to be explained at any point, and I guess nobody wanted to data dump this thing. So that is what it is. Just enough range to cut this guy. Perfect. Less than perfect. So I think at this point, I'm gonna have her switch. Switch to just using a shield. Because yeah, that staff isn't doing much good for her. I think it raises her attack ability by like 3 or 4 points or something. It was something pretty insignificant. Alright, let's just take these guys down one at a time. Good damage. Also good damage. Hammer time happens. Dickery. Steady one around this side. So, I think the main reason that they decided to implement weapon restrictions in this version, so like the original you could literally put anything on any one, other than I think gender-restricted items. But I'm pretty sure the main reason they did it is because of the weird way they could probably fudge around with the mechanics. Like honestly, Berserkers would make a fantastic archer class, but, well, can't use them as such. I think I recall in the original using them as archers sometimes. Because while it was mostly based off dex, I believe some things scaled out strength, like I think crossbows did? I could be completely wrong. I do that a lot. Right, so this should finish her. Dead. Enough. Nice. Okay, I might actually have him... No, he can't switch to two-handers. The other guy can, though. Little helmet face over there. Yeah, another thing that this challenge does, when you have healers or casters of any kind, really, they become more of a target. I mean, you want to get whatever books they can potentially drop. So those are pretty handy to get. And there's a chance that you can replace your current one with a better one. Since they usually come with a bunch of stuff learned. Let's punch him awake. Wait, what the hell? Not what I wanted to do at all. Perfect. Well, it seems like it should have hit him. Oh well. He's probably going to take a bunch of damage this next turn. Well, fine, you just be all defensive. I don't know, the way that I see this whole chariot use thing in my head, it's kind of, you know, somebody's looking out and they would probably be able to reasonably see where the other guy might be able to defend against. Well, I don't know. Seems reasonable to me. And at this point, with somebody down, I think it's time to just start carving towards their leader. We don't really want to go through all of those gems early on. Actually, oh, you know what? I have to save this at the next opportunity. Just have to get going. This went a little bit longer than I expected. Always how it goes with this. This is why I always get worried about freaking recording this. As you start off, like, this will just take 5 minutes, 3 hours later. Alright. We're gonna quick save it. There we go. And that'll have to be that for now.